Hi, friends. I'm just going to enter this full screen. I'm going to read to you chapters 5 and 6 of Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's Library. Chapter 5. Eating lunch in the cafeteria, Kyle stared at his wilted fish sticks, wishing that he could pull a magic take another turn card out of thin air. I blew it, he mumbled. Yep, Akimi agreed. You basically did. Can you imagine how awesome that new library is going to be if Mr. Lemoncello and his imagination factory guys had anything to do with it? Yes, I can, and I'm kind of hoping I get to see it too. After all, I wrote a real essay, not one sentence about balloons. Thanks, rub it in. Akime eased up a little. Hey, Kyle, when you're playing a game like Sorry and you get bumped back 3 spaces, do you usually quit? No, if I get bumped, I play harder because I know I need to find a way to get back to those 3 spaces and pull ahead of the pack. Hey guys, Miguel Fernandez carried his tray over to join Kyle and Akimi. He was being followed by a kid with spiky hair and glasses the size of welder's goggles. You two know Andrew Peckelman, right? Hey, said Kyle and Akimi. Hello. Andrew is one of my top library aides, said Miguel. Cool, said Akimi. Mrs. Younghans, the librarian, just confirmed that Mr. Lemoncello is the top secret benefactor who donated all of the money to build the new public library. He donated $500 million. She heard it on NPR, added Peckelman, who more or less talked straight through his nose. So he probably sounded like this. She heard it on NPR, added Peckelman, who more or less talked straight through his nose. So we did some primary source research on Mr. Lemoncello and his connection to Alexandriaville. What'd you find out? Asked Kyle. First off, said Miguel, he was born here. He had 9 brothers and sisters, added Andrew. All of them crammed into a tiny apartment with only 1 bathroom over in Little Italy, said Miguel. And, said Peckelman, sounding like he wanted to one-up Miguel, he loved the old public library down on Market Street. He used to go there when he was a kid and needed a quiet place to think and doodle his ideas. And get this, said Miguel eagerly, Mrs. Tobin, the librarian back then, took an interest in little Luigi, even though he was just, a kid like us. She kept the library open late some nights and let him borrow junk from her desk or her purse. Thimbles and thumbtacks and glue bottles, even red Barbie doll boots, stuff that he used for the game pieces so that he could map out his first ideas on a library table. Then, Andrew jumped in. Then Mrs. Tobin took Mr. Lemoncello's sketch for Family Frenzy home to her husband, who ran it to a print shop. They signed some papers, created a company, and within a couple of years, they were all millionaires. But Miguel had the last word. Now, of course, Mr. Lemoncello is a bazillionaire. What are you 4 nerds so excited about? Said Haley Daly as she waltzed past the gaggle of popular girls in her royal court. Haley was the princess of 7th grade. Blonde hair, blue eyes, blazingly bright smile. She looked like a walking toothpaste commercial. We're pumped about Mr. Lemoncello, said Miguel. And the new library, said Andrew. And, said Kyle melodramatically, just seeing you, Haley. You are so immature. Come on, girls. Haley and her friends flounced away to the cool kids' table. Check it out, said Akimi, gesturing toward the cafeteria's food line, where Charles Chiltington was balancing 2 trays, his own and one for Mrs. Cameron. I'm so glad you have lunchroom duty today, Mrs. Cameron, Kyle heard Chiltington say. If you don't mind, I have a few questions about how conventions within genres, such as poetry, drama, or essays, can affect the meaning. Well, Charles, I'd be happy to discuss that with you. Thank you, Mrs. Cameron. And may I say that sweater certainly complements your eye color. What a suck-up, mumbled Akimi. Chiltington's trying to use his Weasley charm to make sure Mrs. C sends his essay to the top of the line to Mr. Lemoncello. Don't worry, said Kyle. Mrs. Cameron isn't the final judge. Mr. Lemoncello is. And since he's a genius, he will definitely pick the essays that you guys all wrote. Undoubtedly, said Peckelman. Well, thanks, Kyle, said Miguel. I just wish that you could win with us, said Hakimi. Well, maybe I can. Like you said, this is just a move back 3 spaces card. A take a walk on the boardwalk when someone else owns it. It's a shoot in Chutes and Ladders. A detour to the molasses swamp in Candyland. Yo, Kyle, said Miguel, exactly how many board games do you have you played? Enough to know that you don't ever quit until somebody else actually wins. He picked up his lunch and headed for the dirty tray window. Akimi called after him, Where are you going? I have the rest of lunch and all of study hall to work on a new essay. But Mrs. Cameron won't take it. Maybe, but I've got to roll the dice one more time. Maybe I'll get lucky. I hope so, said Akimi. Me too. I'll see you guys on the bus. Chapter 6. Working on his library essay, like he'd never worked on any essay in his whole essay writing life, Kyle crafted a killer thesis sentence that compared libraries to his favorite games. Sounds like us. We work on thesis statements, don't we? Using a library card can make learning about anything and everything fun, he wrote. When you're in a library researching a topic, you're on a scavenger hunt, looking for clues and prizes in books instead of your old attic or backyard. He put in points and subpoints. He wrapped up everything with a tidy conclusion. I think points and subpoints are like boxes and bullets. He wrapped up everything with a tidy conclusion. He even checked his spelling. Twice. But Akimi had been right. I'm sorry, Kyle, Mrs. Cameron said when she handed his new paper at the end of the day. This is very good, and I'm impressed by your extra effort. However, the deadline was this morning. Rules are rules, the same as they are in all board games that you mentioned in your essay. She basically handed Kyle a go-back 500 spaces card. But Kyle refused to give up. He remembered how his mother had written to Mr. Lemoncello's imagination factory when he and his brothers needed a fresh set of clue cards for the indoor-outdoor scavenger hunt. Maybe he could send his essay directly to Mr. Lemoncello via email. Maybe if the game maker wasn't judging the essays until later that night, Kyle still had a shot. A long shot, but hey, sometimes the long ones were the only shots you got. The second he hit home, he sat down at his mother's kitchen computer. He attached his essay file to a high-priority email addressed to Mr. Lemoncello at the Imagination Factory. What are you doing, Kyle? His mom asked when she came into the room and found him typing on her computer. Some extra credit homework. Extra credit? School's out at the end of this week. So? You're not playing my Diner Dash game again, are you? No, Mom. It's an essay about Mr. Lemoncello's amazing new library downtown. Oh, it sounds interesting. I heard on the radio that there's going to be a gala grand opening reception this Friday night at the Parker House Hotel, right across the street from the old bank building. I mean, the new library. Kyle typed in a PS to his email. I hope at the party on Friday you have some balloons. And then he hit send. Who did you send your essay to? His mother asked. Your teacher? No, Mr. Lemoncello himself. It took some digging, but I found his email address on his game company's website. Really? I'm impressed. His mom rubbed his hair. You know, this morning I said to your dad, Kyle can be just as smart as Curtis and just as focused as Mike when he puts his mind to it. Kyle smiled. Thanks, Mom. But his smile quickly disappeared when a bong alerted him to an incoming email from Mr. Lemoncello. It was an auto-response form letter. Dear Lemoncello game lover, this is a no-reply mailbox. Your message did not go through. Do not try to resend it or you'll just hear another bong. But thank you for playing our games. That's the end of chapter 6. Take a second and make a prediction in your head about what you think is going to happen next. Is Kyle going to get his letter to Mr. Lemoncello? If he does, how is he going to do it? Is Mr. Lemoncello going to end up seeing his email? What do you think is going to happen?